Alrighty, here's our next problem, and it's asking us what is the square root of 105. Okay, so when we see a problem like this, there are three approaches that you should take. The first, you should try prime factorization. Try prime factorization to see if you can solve the problem this way. Unless you have a calculator on hand, then you might want to try something else. But first, let's try to prime factorization. Prime factorization is basically writing a number as the product of its prime factors. So let's see what's the prime factor of 105. Obviously, 105 is a number that ends in 5, and we know that any number ending in 0 or 5 has 5 as one of its factors. So we can use 5 over here, and we know that 105 can be written as 5 times 21. Then we have 21, and we know that the sum of the digits of 21, so 2 plus 1 in this case, is 3, and 3 is a multiple of 3, so we know that 21 is also divisible by 3. So we have 21 is 3 times 7. Now we can write 105 as 5 times 3 times 7. We also know that 5, 3, 7, they're all prime numbers. So our process of prime factorization is finished at this point. However, we notice that the square root of 105 cannot be further simplified. Because there isn't a pair of factors for the square root of 105, so we can't further simplify the square root of 105. So the first way is like, usually over here you can just say what is the square root of 105? You can just say the square root of 105 is just the square root of 105. It wasn't too much of an interesting answer, but as long as you show that you've done prime factorization and saying that the root of 105 cannot be further simplified, then it's just the square root of 105. It's a completely perfect answer. Now let's look at our second way. So if you're asking the square root of 105, you could also just use calculators to do it. Use calculators to find the exact value of the square root of 105. So let's just do it over here. Square root of 105. It is approximately 10.247. This is just approximation. It's not the exact value of the square root of 105 because this number is irrational. So yeah, this is the square root of 105 using a calculator. So let's just say using calculator. Again, there's a third way where you can find the square root of 105 by hand. So like you can, for example, perhaps you can use linear approximation. So you can have a function y equals the square root of x, and you can use x equals 100 to approximate, and you use a equals 105. So I'm not going to do the entire process, but basically you can use linear approximation to approximate the value of the square root of 105 by hand. It is actually quite accurate, usually in most cases. So yes, you can also use linear approximation to approximate the value of the square root of 105. There's also another way where you can use long division. Use long division to approximate the square root of 105. So use long division to approximate. Again, I'm not going to go too much detail into the linear approximation and long division method. Usually, for the level that actually asks those kind of problems, using prime factorization or using a calculator, it should be sufficient. Unless they specifically explicitly told you that you should use linear approximation to find the value of the square root of 105, giving them an answer read by calculator and told them you use a calculator to find the answer, or just use prime factorization are completely acceptable in most cases. Cool, now let's look at their simple solution. They just tried to use a prime factorization and they said, oh, you can't. So they just use a calculator, which is our first and second method, and they also the more common methods. So yeah, let's just say the solution is good. The solution is good. Nice. Cool. Okay, we're at 2:47. So actually, couple minutes over our live stream today, but it's alright. So let me just switch back to the camera. So again, thank you for coming to our live stream today. This is all we're going to cover. If you liked the popular math problems asked on OneClass and you want them explained, please come to our future live streams. If you would like, you can click subscribe to the button down below. This will give you a notification of our future live stream. So I hope you enjoyed it and hope that you have an excellent day. I'll see you next time.